5. The struggle for happiness. Next morning. I stir awake, brushing away something tickling my cheek. Finally awake. My eyes open and meet with Beatrix's. She's standing on the side of the bed and leaning over me, with her long golden hair trickling down her shoulders and down to mine. I instinctively look towards the window, with a feeling of building stress, but thankfully it's only almost daylight. I almost groan at the thought of another day filled with the torment of paperwork. What am I even doing this for anymore? There's no need to rush anymore, is there? My chest starts hurting again, as my mind drifts back to yesterday in a swirl of dark thoughts. As if to interrupt my stream of thoughts, Beatrix pokes my cheek, not just revealing the tickling feeling from before but also some rather bratty behavior. I stare at her disapprovingly, and then end up glancing down, and realize that she's only in a chemise and an apron. I sigh and cover my eyes. Why are you wearing that? I know I'm heartbroken, but you're a lady for God's sake. Why? Because my night intruder has to start his work day soon, and I made breakfast as you were going to be late. I roll away from her. Not the apron. A moment of silence spreads between us. My stomach turns. I do want to go back, but I want to grab Delia in my arms and forgive her. Say that it was just stupid misunderstandings. But will fixing it this time prevent it from happening again? Or something else for that matter? What if she just leaves one day without a letter? Because she thought I did something again, and I have to search for her. ... You have to go back. No. Unlike with me, you cannot just run away from Delia. She is not a forced betrothed you can just entertain when you feel like it. You are the one that invited her into your heart, your family, your home, and called her your fiancé. She is waiting for you, probably bawling her tears out over the mistake she has made. I look back to Beatrix. Why are you doing this? Trying to help Delia out instead of seducing me. She looks at me quietly for a long while and hesitates. Think of it as me making up for telling you something I shouldn't have. But you were right. ... Even if I was, would you be here in my bed if I had not told you? I think I gave you an easy way out, instead of making you face the situation, like a king should. If you don't go back now and make a proper decision, won't you regret it? I frown and then let out a heavy sigh. I would. When you say it like that, you aren't cute at all. She's mixing duty into it. But she's not wrong either. But part of me wishes that she had given me an easy way out. I feel a soft wave of bitterness. Then was letting me in yesterday your duty to the crown. Because you couldn't just let me off myself in heartache. I sit up and grab her jaw, trying in futility to puff myself up, but all she gives me in return is a coy smile. Then I would have called your guards to take you home. Not let you wear my undergarments, in which you look quite unthreatening, your highness. I deflate a bit and sigh, letting go of her as I lay back down. Does it really amuse you so much? Her eyes narrow into those bullying eyes she makes when someone's foolishness really does amuse her. Of course. You might get to see me in a chemise, but I get to see you with that princely act torn apart, just acting like a normal heartbroken person. Princely act? That's how I'm supposed to. Act. I let out a soundless groan. Beatrix is full of truths I don't want to think about. She always was. But she also looked down at me like I was an unknowing child sometimes. I sigh. Besides, what am I going to say when Delia asks if I know where you are and why I'm here? Do I tell her that you're sleeping off a heartache in my bed? I get it. I sit up and get out of the bed. Satisfied, she straightens up and then points to the chair. Your clothes are dry, and I have breakfast ready. Your earliest morning meetings should start in half an hour, so you'll have to hurry up. I made sure you can eat breakfast on the way. I'll meet you downstairs. She leaves, unceremoniously. I look outside, where the sun hasn't risen fully yet, and I can't help but to wonder if she's always up this early, or if she herself got up to wake me since I fell asleep like that. She used to be a part of these busy times after all, so she knows how it is. I feel like her room was messier yesterday though, without remembering clearly. One thing's for sure though. That blanket fort of hers is practically hanging on a thread. I can't help but to give a half smile. Books are stapled in uneven stacks, barely sorted by genre, like it was a rush job. Usually I'd never be let anywhere near Beatrix's private space, and we would always meet in a greeting room or in a garden, surrounded by guards and servants. I don't think I've ever been alone with her like today, and the meeting in the student council room, since we were around 7. She has a point when she says I don't know her well. Privately. I just thought there wasn't any point. How different could she be, is the thought I had. I frown. Unlike Beatrix, I was taught to be perfect every second of the day. Princely, I suppose. I never thought that Beatrix would be different. Herself behind closed doors when no one is looking. I finish changing clothes, walk out of her room and down the hallways. I thought the place was quiet yesterday, but even now, where the servants usually wake up and get the day started, it's deadly quiet. Is there even anyone here? As I get to the entry hall, I see Beatrix waiting for me, looking somewhat impatient, with a sandwich in her hand. Though, getting closer I stare at the half-squished loaf of bread, and its insides almost falling out. Is. That's supposed to be a sandwich. She looks at it, and then back at me with a shrug. What did you expect? I'm not Delia. You really aren't. Why don't you at least have a cook here? I didn't want anyone disturbing my vacation. Vacation. So instead you're all alone, making yourself a target by abduction, by staying all alone and opening the doors for men at night. I jab at her, to make her consider her own safety just a little bit. She huffs and puts a hand to her cheek, giving me a cold stare. And who would try to abduct the coldest and cruelest woman in the country? They shake in fear at the sight of me. I stare at her. A few weeks ago I might have agreed with that statement of hers, but now. I look down at the apron for a moment, and then back up to her eyes. I can't tell if she's looking that much down on me, or doesn't realize herself what a beauty she is. She's been locked up in a castle her whole life, and had people cower at her feet for her entire life, so to be honest, it might be both. Get some guards. I'll send some over until they arrive. I grab the sandwich from her and walk past her to the door. What disservice did I do for you? Do you think I'd allow you to ruin my vacation? I freeze. Then sigh. Turn around. Does that vacation consist of walking around in a chemise all day? One thing was last night, but you're still barely wearing anything. Why aren't you wearing a proper dress? Her answer comes bluntly. Because the corset is a pain to tie up and wear, for a single guy that's not here for more than 10 minutes, and has never had any genuine interest in me, not even passing. Now get going. She might be smiling as she says that, but her eyes aren't. The more I get to know about Beatrix, the more I notice that the love I thought she had for me was merely pleasantries, and she's treating me exactly as what I've worked for, like someone with no importance to her. I hesitate for a moment and then step out of the door. At least find a summer dress. I sigh and start walking towards the palace, my head a different sort of mess than yesterday, until I realize that I now have to explain to Delia where I've been. With the woman that terrifies Delia to the core. I don't think because she told me you would do this is going to pass as an answer. At least the sandwich is easy to finish. The guards give a look of relief and worry as I approach the gate and let me in without a word. On the other side is Delia, Cyril and Louise Winterbell. The one that kissed her, and the one she exploded in jealousy from just seeing me work with. Delia is wrapped in a blanket and her eyes a puffy from crying. My stomach sinks with guilt. I can't stand seeing her cry. Your Highness, please forgive me. I beg that you not take your anger of me out on Lady Delia. Cyril drops to the ground again, taking any and all blame for the situation, while Delia stands behind him, looking at me with those blue doe eyes pleading with me. Louise smiles at me awkwardly. It was just a misunderstanding, Clovis. See, she never had anyone in her heart but you. She's just been insecure because she's all alone in a new place, and you haven't time with her all week. Yesterday Louise was teasing me about my eagerness to get back to Delia. Today she's half scolding me I didn't. But she also looks guilty. She probably thinks this happened because of her, so she needs to make up for it. Beatrix and Louise don't get along well. They work together fine, but Louise hates Beatrix's scheming just like I do. Louise also grew up with us men, rather than her fellow ladies, because of her family situation, so she doesn't understand Beatrix's way of doing things. Then again, neither do I. I look to Delia, waiting for any sort of excuse or apology from her, but she glances to Cyril and Louise as though looking for backup. With it, a sudden realization hits me. Is this how she's been dealing with Beatrix? Am I the villain now? Am I supposed to hug her close and say it doesn't matter what happened, that it's my fault, and that I'll try to spend more time with her? I didn't know she'd been working hard. I haven't had the time. Am I supposed to put her under surveillance and read a report on what she's been doing before going to bed so I can praise her? Should I treat it as a one-time incident and try to stop worrying? But I glanced down to Cyril. He might have kissed her. But her hands tightened into his shirt. She didn't struggle, pull back, or anything. She just closed her eyes and let him. If I hadn't run after her, what would have happened? To begin with, I only noticed her because I noticed Beatrix Mansion faces the garden, so I got a bit paranoid about being watched, and noticed the basket being dropped. I wasn't really worried until I saw Delia's bloody shoes and my heart sunk with worry for her. I didn't even think about that it might be because she saw Louise, until I saw her kissing Cyril. Clovis. Delia calls me, her sweet voice trembling. I stand at the crossway, feeling my heart tremble, and my lips pressed together. But what is the right choice? To forgive Delia and try again, or to try desperately to give her up? If Beatrix hadn't told me ahead of time, what would I have done? If she hadn't put the seed of distrust in my heart, would that be the right answer? I stand there, looking at Delia that stares up at me with tears in her sweet eyes, and remember the time of love we had that lead up to this. The times I was certain I would be with her forever. And I find myself scared of losing that. Alright, Delia just got worried once. Not everything is broken between us. It was just a misunderstanding, right? And Cyril himself says that he initiated it. I put a smile on my face, forced and an act, as I convince myself. I understand I should have told you about Louise... too. I compromise and lift the guilt from her shoulders. She seems to have stayed awake all night. She has learned from this. It won't happen again. Delia darts into my arms and her small figure presses into mine. I gently stroke her hair, but it still feels like something isn't the way it was before. I have to go work now, Delia. I will see you tonight. I kiss the top of her head. Clovis. Please don't go. She looks up at me teary-eyed with the blanket around her shoulders. I cup her cheek, the way I know she likes it. I have to. The day is already scheduled. I can't be a bother to the ministers and all the people waiting. I see her tears spilling over again. Should I just ignore the arrangement with Beatrix? But if Beatrix finds out, she might make the situation harder. It's just for a bit more than 2 weeks more. Delia, I try to calm her, but it only makes her cry more. I hold her tight. This isn't going to hold up for 2 more weeks, is it? I love you, Delia. You know that. Once this time is over, things will be back to normal. It never will go back to normal. It's not the academy any longer, after all. Delia manages to halt her tears and turn it into her little hiccups, where tears drop out every time a hiccup escapes. She really is cute. I'll be good, I promise, she whimpers in my arms. I know. You always are. Is this a lie? I kiss her forehead, and then pull back. Louise looks at me with worry, but walks with me towards the offices. Once we are out of Delia's sight, she asks me the question I had hoped not to answer. Where did you go last night? To visit someone, so I could cry my heart out and clear up my heart before facing Delia. Louise doesn't look satisfied with my explanation, but doesn't press any further. The first couple of days, Delia would cry quietly against my back when I came home late. Louise said Delia was probably trying to hold in her loneliness so I wouldn't notice. But how can you not notice when she shakes like a leaf and your shirt gets wet with tears? In the end, I ended up spending my 30-minute break running through the castle to Delia, give her a flower I hurriedly picked up on the way, eat lunch hurriedly with her in the few minutes we had, and running back to the office. The people around me smiled every day I did it, praising me for being so loving and going so far for her. They also called me a fool when I wasn't looking. The ministers did scold me lightly, as I started running out of energy faster than usual, but that was all. In return, Delia was happy. She started preparing lunch for me when I came by. Sometimes bigger lunch than I could eat in the time I had, so she'd pack it up in a basket, expecting me to eat it or share with the others after I ran back with it. But she was happy. Even when she started making the lunch more heavy with meat and protein and different herbs, I ate it, though it got hard to force down. As long as she's happy. 6. Drain. Clovis' point of view. After about a week I was drained. Mentally and physically. A part of me couldn't help but to feel pathetic. It was just a light run. One would think it would make me feel better. But instead I felt the drain slowly take over my body. There was just 1 week left, but these days felt like the longest I'd had in my life. So when Delia met me, awake and happy at the door when I came back, I couldn't tell if I was happy to see her happy, or dreading that she hoped I had energy enough to hold a conversation. Clovis, I planned a picnic tomorrow, she says cheerfully. When tomorrow? During lunch? I suppose we could do that. It would be better than running for her. Should I have suggested this faster? But what if she still carried bad feelings about last time? You've been looking tired and pale, so I decided to cancel all your meetings so you could have a day to relax. What? My head rushes through the things planned for tomorrow, which includes rescue relief to the west, a disagreement between 2 high nobles, continuing discussing the budget for the summer palace. Especially the last will be hard to keep in my head if we don't continue tomorrow, with everything else going on. I can't, Delia. Why? Work can wait a day, you need to relax. She purses her lips at me, looking cute as she scolds me. If you wanted me to relax, then tell me not to come running for lunch. I feel my stomach sink with guilt at my own internal thoughts. I can't just take time off because I feel tired, Delia. I know you mean well, but this is important business. She tears up, making my stomach knot up. No, please don't cry. Louise said it could be moved. That your schedule is partly this pressed because you're trying to make time for me next week. Then I'll sacrifice a day today for one next week so that you can rest up. Usually I'd think she was cute, but my mind is spinning with the amount of incoming complaints if I force an entire castle full of ministers, clerks and the like to adjust their vacation schedule. All because my fiancé, who is part cause of a bunch of extra work, wants me to stay home to go on a picnic. Everyone have plans to leave that Monday, Delia. I can't just expect them to change all their plans at my whim. She tightens her hands into little balls and I see the tears streaming again. I know she's doing this for my good, but she doesn't fully understand the implications. Do you? She bites her lips. I can tell she's holding something in. What should I do? I glance to the bed, and then to Delia. She's sad she can't be with me and that I'm not taking proper care of myself. That's all. I pull Delia into a hug and glance through our window towards Beatrix's dark mansion, wondering if this was the reason Beatrix set my schedule up to have all the work in the first month. At this point, I can't tell if it was a lesson for me or for Delia. It'll be okay, Delia. Once the next week is over, we will be able to enjoy our time together. Okay. Just another week. Just another week. I end up staying awake until Delia calms down enough to sleep, then slip out of the room to fetch a servant and tell them to ensure everyone that tomorrow will proceed as planned before finally falling asleep next to Delia, in a sleep ridden with nightmares. Until, for once, Delia is awake before me and wakes me up. Clovis, she calls me cheerfully. With a tray full of heavy breakfast and a cute pink apron. I made breakfast so we could enjoy a bit of time together before you have to go. Thank you, Delia. I sit up, feeling groggy as I look at the clock. There's an hour until I usually leave to have breakfast. I end up eating slower than I think though, so perhaps it's fine Delia set off extra time. She keeps talking about what she's learning in the library and how Cyril is helping her study. I praise her, while I quietly wonder why she's still so close to him after what happened. Was I always like this? Are you jealous? I look at Delia, who is looking at me with intense curiosity. Say, of who? Cyril. Jealous? Is it jealousy? To wonder if you'll run to him and let him hold you again, I guess? I end up frowning at the thought, but Delia smiles. It really is just friendship. He keeps me company when you're busy. He was really just trying to soothe me that one time and show me that the only one I actually love is you. Her cheeks flush a bit red. And I decided I won't run away anymore. I won't let my worries get between us. She looks determined. I force a smile. Why are you so happy at my misery? That I'm worrying if you'll fall into his arms. What is my mind turning to? Finally I leave and Delia kisses my forehead goodbye, and I kiss hers before leaving. Just a week left. As I finally get to the office, Beatrix is there, all dressed up like her noble lady self, smiling like a cunning vixen as she greets the people overjoyed to see her. Why are you here? Go home. I don't have the energy for banter or life lessons right now. I almost turn around on my heels the moment I see her, but I can't just run away either. Lady Beatrix, what a surprise, I greet her politely. Your Highness, she responds and turns to look at me. Though her lips were about to move, she freezes up a bit as she looks at me. Yes, I thought I would help out, to make things go a bit more smoothly today, she adds hesitantly, clearly knowing that the reason we need help is because she isn't doing the part she used to do. Thank you, I end up responding quite dryly. I don't mean to take that tone with her. Thankfully, the officials take over the interaction, and I make it into the meeting room. Beatrix really does join us though, and as the duties of the day begins, Beatrix practically takes over the meetings, controlling the pace, lining up arguments, keeping time, cutting off when people get sidetracked, and sums up the conclusion neatly. The cruel, cold lady keeps the officials in that iron grip of hers, and though I see dissatisfaction with some, I see relief with others. For the first time in a few weeks, I breathe a sigh of relief, as I subconsciously pull back from the conversation, drifting half asleep to the sound of her commandeering voice. It's never been so soothing. Clovis. I almost jolt as I feel Beatrix's hand on my shoulder. She's looking down over me again, but unlike last time, her eyes are filled with worry. Why? No, more importantly, what about everyone else? The meeting room is completely empty except for the two of us. I fell asleep. What a disgrace. I've never actually fallen asleep at a meeting before. Are you okay? She looks me over with this uncomfortable look, like she's checking for things out of place. I'm fine. It's temporary. I brush her hand off, and she pulls back without a struggle. Are you hungry? I don't think I could press anything down right now. No, I need to go visit Delia. I get up and start walking towards the door, only to feel my arm grabbed, stopping me in my tracks, as Beatrix latches herself onto me, like I'm escorting her, and with a snap unfolds her fan. There's a balcony a few rooms from here. I would like to see it. I stare at her in disbelief. What does she think she's doing? She's been off all day. Didn't she say she was going to stay in her mansion this entire month anyway? She stared up at me with a sort of "what are you going to do about it" kind of expression. Beatrix. Who was it that just took over the meeting and came and helped out without you having to go on your knees and beg for it? I sigh. Is this some sort of blackmail? Beatrix raises an eyebrow at me. Even Delia will forgive you for not running to her like a madman and taking a nap instead. Ah, right. There are couches on that balcony. Is this her way of telling me to go sleep? I hesitate. If you don't take a nap, then you'll be useless the rest of the day, and I'll pull all the decision in my favor. First blackmail, and now threats. She smiles behind the fan. Does it work? It does. Her father is already the Minister for Foreign Affairs. She has strong opinions on certain topics. Besides, I'll have to go around and apologize for falling asleep when the meetings start again. Let's not repeat the disgrace of falling asleep in the meeting again. As you wish, Lady Beatrix. I sigh and guide Beatrix to the balcony, and she motions me towards one couch, where she takes the other. I'll wake you up when the meeting starts, she says softly. Just that. Then takes out a small pocketbook and starts reading. I sit down across from her and lay down on the couch as I look over Beatrix. She's stubborn and manipulative. Somehow I feel like I always come out with a loss when I go against her, but not necessarily losses I'm unwilling to take or losses that harm me. She looks surprisingly peaceful though, reading in the sun. No conflict, no taunting, no tears. I feel my body begin to relax, and I drift asleep in the sun. Your Highness. Beatrix wakes me up, but she sounds stern and irritated. Groggily, I struggle to wake up again. I'd half expected to be woken up by her poking me again, but this time she just stares at me from the couch on the other side. She looks annoyed, almost disgusted. What did I do? Is it just B, or is she switching between my name and my title as she pleases? I'm awake. Clovis. I shudder unintentionally at Delia's voice. My body is screaming alarm signals, and in a single moment I'm fully awake, sitting up like I've been caught doing something I shouldn't. I myself am slightly shocked at my reaction, but seeing Delia, I understand why. Why are you with Lady Beatrix? Her voice is cracking from tears. She's crying again. Was she angry I didn't run to her? Was it a mistake to go sleep? No, calm down. She's asking because she is scared of Beatrix. This is an improvement. She hasn't run off while I was sleeping. I stand up. Lady Beatrix decided on her own to come by and help us out. I fell asleep in the meeting, so she offered to watch me while I slept and wake me up when it was time for the next meeting. It's not a lie. Beatrix may have threatened me to get me here, but she did say she would wake me up. ... But it only makes Delia cry harder. That's why I told you to take the day off. We are back here. Why would you listen to Lady Beatrix and not me? Delia, I am not. I just needed to spend the break to take a nap. That's all. I try to calm her, as I step up to her and wrap my arms around her. She looks up at me with those hurt eyes though, like I've betrayed her. Why didn't you call me then? I could have given you a lap pillow and spoiled you and brought lunch. Am I not good enough? Why is it turning out like this? No, Delia did say she wouldn't let her worries get between us, so she's just saying those worries out loud. That's right. This is an improvement. At least now I can deal with it. Of course you are good, Delia. You're perfect the way you are. There was just no time. I fell asleep in the meeting and went directly here to sleep some more. By the time the messenger got to you, and you got here, the break would have been over. Delia bites her lip. Why do we have to do this in front of Beatrix? Why do we have to do it here by the hallway? Come, let's find somewhere quiet to talk about this. ... was waiting in the garden. I stare at Delia and finally take proper notice of the basket in her hand. Ah, the picnic? I was waiting for you. But you didn't come out. How would I know you decided to turn it into lunch instead? I'm sorry, Delia, I didn't realize. We will do the lunch picnic tomorrow, okay? She's sniffle crying here in the open door to the balcony, in plain view of Beatrix. The officials hiding at the ends of the hallways, so they don't get messed up in this. Did I once think this was cute? Go back, okay? We can talk about it tonight. I'm bargaining at this point. Delia looks at Beatrix, then up at me, still crying. But she nods, and leaves without further fuss. So easily I'm actually unsettled. I take a deep breath to calm myself down again. Her crying really is getting a big reaction out of me. I'll apologize to the officials in the meeting. And here I thought you replaced me with a fiancé, not a child you'll have to take care of. I don't even glance back to Beatrix. It's a cruel comment towards Delia. She isn't a child, Beatrix. But she demands your attention like one. Is this really what you wanted? Someone to take care of, instead of someone to confidently stand by your side as a partner? Her words hurt. Delia will become like that one day. She's just frustrated because she can't help me right now. But she's struggling really hard to learn. Beatrix sighs. I see. She lets it go on that note, with my desperate hope that it gets better in the future. The meetings continue smoothly with Beatrix's help, and all it does is showcase how much Beatrix has learned over the years and where she excels. Part of me knows that Delia will never be able to do the same. She's too shy. Delia would do well with paperwork, but politics and meetings like this, where everyone is in it for their own game, is somewhere she doesn't belong, somewhere too tainted for her. Originally, my plan was to change the world for her, but I can't even be confident she won't seek solace in the arms of others if I mess up. What am I doing? I sigh heavily and head back to our room. It's dark outside again, but light glimmers from under the door. She's awake. I open the door, somewhat hesitantly, and find Delia sitting on the bed, with Louise comforting her, awkwardly stroking her back. Louise isn't the type to do that. My eyes meet with Louise's. She looks worried. Then, I'll be on my way, Louise says hesitantly, but Delia holds Louise's hand tightly and stands up together with Louise. We're looking at me with determination and anger. Louise looks like she wants to escape. Like she doesn't want to be here. Delia is all riled up, and for the first time I see Delia not hiding behind someone else. But at the same time I dread doing this in front of people. Again. I know you slept with Beatrix. Everything explodes, and I don't even know how to react to this. Why? I know she's more classy and pretty and sexy than me. I know that I can never be as good at politics as her, but I thought that was okay. That I was perfect the way I am. You said that. I don't even know how to answer. Delia, wait, why do you think I slept with her? Of course I momentarily suspect Louise might have told her about Beatrix's answer, but from Louise's shocked look at Delia's words, I'm doubting it. That said, I've never seen her cry this much before, not even after the Cyril thing. When I opened the door to the balcony, she was sitting on the side of the couch, watching you so closely, touching your cheek with her finger. Seriously? I get this image of Beatrix looming over me and poking my cheek with a cruel grin on her lips to wake me up, while calling me an idiot for letting this go so far. I take a deep breath. Poking me is about the meanest physical way Beatrix is allowed to wake me up. I'm sure if I allowed her to slap me awake, she would do that. I step up to Delia and caress her cheek, the way she likes. Beatrix might be very beautiful and good at what she does, but she's cruel and spiteful to her opponents. I didn't choose Beatrix. I chose you, Delia. I chose you for your kindness and your devotion, your sweetness, the hope you bring, the way you make me smile. You're lying. Because you haven't smiled to me genuinely since we got here. You don't listen to me. Just treat me like a child that knows nothing. That's not true. I've just been very exhausted. I don't get to finish before Delia slaps me across the cheek. My ear rings. It hurts in my chest more than on my cheek. As I take my hand from her and put on the stinging cheek, I see Delia's horror at what she's done. She cuts herself off and then darts out the door behind me. Delia is growing, changing. Perhaps it's a sign that things are going the right way. I turn around, about to follow Delia, when Louise puts her hand on my shoulder. I'd almost forgotten she was there. Don't, Clovis. I'll go after her, okay? I stare somewhat dazed at Louise. What did I say wrong? Louise frowns and then pats my shoulder. You didn't. She hesitates for a moment and looks at me in the eyes. I'm not a good wife myself, but is this really how things are supposed to be? Then she runs after Delia. I'd been wondering why Louise wasn't there at the afternoon meetings today. I just thought she avoided Beatrix. I sigh so hard I think my soul might leave my body and put my head against the bedpost. 7 games of the heart and mind. Clovis point of view. I sigh heavily. How did it turn out like this? It was only supposed to be a single month of hard work, where nothing would be changed. I have to go ask Beatrix why she'd do something like that. I push off the bedpost and wander tiredly through the palace to the gate and to Beatrix's mansion. Knock on the knocker, and because the door opens fairly quickly, I expect a servant, but it's only Beatrix again, with a loosened corset and bare feet. From the way her dress sags a bit, that one is probably loosened too. You, really? How do you manage to look worse than this morning? I give her a stiff stare, but she looks genuinely surprised. Because someone was trying to poke my cheek to wake me up, and now Delia thinks I slept with you, I accuse her rather bluntly. Poke? Ah, I was checking how deep the bags under your eyes were. And why by the gods were you doing that? She stares at me for a long moment after I ask that, and then looks away somewhat awkwardly, while brushing loose strands of hair behind her ear. You know I can see into the royal gardens, right? I've seen you running back and forth like a fool for a week, so I decided to check up on you before you fell over with exhaustion. I figured you wouldn't let me check while you were awake, so I may have crossed some boundaries. I sigh. How the mighty has fallen if I need Beatrix to look after me. I guess Delia must have looked at or said something to Beatrix that made her angry, so she moved away and called me to wake up. It's fine, as long as you don't mess things up more or do that again. I take a step down from the stairs to her door. With that cleared up, I should go back now. Is she still the girl you fell in love with? I pause and grit my teeth. It makes no difference, I end up snapping back at her. Do you hate me that much? I'm tired of playing games. This isn't how things were supposed to turn out. I turn back, losing my temper as I grab Beatrix by the arms and pour out the frustration that has been building up for weeks. This is all because of you. You set up a situation you knew she couldn't handle. A situation where she would be miserable. You knew she would be jealous of Louise and knew that she would be miserable not even to get a single full day with me. Because otherwise our agreement wouldn't be valid. You've done your absolute best to make this month as miserable for me and her as possible. You're cruel, you are calculated, and I hate you. I hate you for making me doubt her. I puff. That is right. That is why I never looked at Beatrix. She's cruel. Isn't Delia cruel too? My heart sinks and my eyes tear up, revealing things I don't want to realize. I look up at Beatrix and see only calmness in her eyes, though I'm pouring everything out on her like this. She doesn't trust you. She turns people against you, that she gets to rescue her from you. Humiliates you in public. You may call me calculative, but I don't turn your friends against you with teary eyes, or use those teary eyes to get whatever I want when I'm unhappy. Shut up. Delia doesn't. She doesn't. Then why are you here? Coming to my home late at night again, instead of being with her at the palace. The unsaid truths in her words string bitterly. Because I had to know why you did it, so I could scold you. Scold me for taking better care of you than Delia. Yes. No, so I could avoid to realize that everything keeps breaking apart faster than I can fix it. The clarity of her words hurt. What did I do wrong, Beatrix? I loosen my grip and instead plop my head down on her shoulder, selfishly seeing solace. You got blinded by love, that's all. Something everyone tries at one point. You just wanted an escape from being the prince. Or, rather, you just wanted a warm love to return home to. She caresses my back, letting me be selfish once again. Have you ever fallen blindly in love too? I'd once convinced myself she was blindly in love with me, but now I'm doubting she even had any affection for me. Even a smidgen. No. Not even once. See. After all, until I am no longer your betrothed, all of my devotion belongs to you. whether you want it or not. I give a small huff of a laugh at those words. But you don't love me. I feel like I can hear a smile in her response. I'm not foolish enough to love someone that hates me and wants to hurt me, even from when we were kids, and you promised me that you'd never throw me away. You only always swore that it was because our family would bring you back to power. Did I say that? I probably did. You weren't cute at all. She huffs back at me. Cuteness is relative and subjective. I smile vaguely. Like when you looked more hurt by that slap than I was. It did certainly not, she protests after a short pause, sounding stubborn but insincere. Either way, it seems like you've calmed down enough to head back. We've stood in the door long enough. She gently moves a hand between us. This idiot still doesn't have any servants or guards. Just a bit more. And I'll be ready. She pushes me back properly this time, and puts a bit of distance between us, looking at me seriously. I am not your therapist. I will not fix you and Delia's problems. Remember, I am the one that made the situation, such that they would appear. I stare at her. She did. She set it up so that I would see the worst sides of Delia, since I've been comparing the two of them and calling her a villainess. She set this up, expecting a clear-cut answer from me, not something half-hearted. If anything, she set me up for the same pain I was planning for her. But that isn't all, is it? The reason you don't have any guards or servants. Is it so that I would come running to you in the middle of the night like this? She flinches. I think this is the first time I've actually truly figured her out. If a guard or servant got in the way, I wouldn't be as foolishly bold, and I'd run back halfway or turn at the door, worried about public perception. She slowly glances away. I can't tell if I've walked into a trap or attempted saved from my own stupidity, but either way, thinking of it from the perspective of Beatrix objectifies the situation for me. Assuming she knew that Delia would end up crying with someone, then she knew I'd come running and she'd be able to deal with me out of the public eye, something she usually never does. She's been more aggressive about having me in private to show off sides of herself that she can't display in public. Was I being so stubborn that she had to set up this bothersome thing for me to notice her saying she's a suitable partner? Beatrix unfolds a fan from who knows where and hides her expression behind it. Even more importantly, it highlights that my struggles to keep Delia happy have probably been futile. Did you affect Louise too? I remember how weirdly Louise reacted before I left, and since Louise's superior in the ministry is Beatrix's father, she does actually have sway over her. More importantly, I just need cleared up how far Beatrix's scheme has affected the world around me. No, but Delia probably tried to gain an ally in Louise because she's a woman. But Louise is your friend, she's not blind. I stare at Beatrix for a few moments. She's going to wrap me around her finger if I let her. She is terrifying, to be honest. I remember thinking that it seemed like she was looking down on me. I wonder if she still is. She probably is. With how much of a mess I am. Honestly, right now I'm pathetic. But she really doesn't take me seriously enough. I look back to the castle, where I know Delia is crying her heart out again. Did you sleep in the same bed as me when I was here last? Do I seem like a fool? Sleeping in the same bed as a man leads to cuddles, and cuddles lead to awkward questions in the morning. I need you to make a choice based on your heart and brain, not anything else. She says it all with a huff. I'm relieved, knowing she wouldn't do something like that without me knowing, but also that I know where I stand with Beatrix right now. A choice. The choice of hoping Delia will change and become a good queen, or the choice of choosing this bully, that would without a doubt stay with me, unless I try to kill her. So you have figured out or remembered my devious plan to make you realize that Delia isn't flawless, and life with her will contain many small heartbreaks. You've tried it now, after all. Also, seemingly more than I expected. What will you do? Get some guards, I scold her, the second time. Then step out the door away from her. She looks so confused, shocked even, as I glance behind me one last time. I'm done playing games with both of them. I go back to the palace, where Louise greets me with an exhausted look on her face. It's been a long day for her too. Clovis. I'm glad you came back tonight. I nod. How is she? She's still upset. She got more upset as she found out you left the palace, but she's relatively stable right now. I see. No more games. I have to take control of the situation. I must. I look to one of the guards. You'll deliver a summons to Maximilian to arrive here by tomorrow night exactly. Louise tilts her head. Isn't he under house arrest? Yes, because of Beatrix's schemes. But in this case, I'm pretty sure they'll let him go. I should add a letter to Beatrix's mother. Don't worry. With what I have in mind, Maximilian will be here come hail or storm, probably even if they cut his legs off. After all, he's as big of an idiot as I am. I'll be sleeping in the office tonight. You won't go back to Delia. No, I am not ready yet. I can't make anyone happy like this, not even myself. Louise looks at me with worry. Next evening. As planned, Maximilian arrives around dinner time, where he appears in my office as I try to finish dinner before the meetings continue. Louise has been acting as an intermediary between Delia and me, or rather, trying desperately to keep Delia from spinning out of control. Not Louise's specialty. This has been the longest I haven't seen Delia since we got here. You called. Maximilian looks at me with his curly blonde locks bouncing in thick waves, just like his sister. We are going to set a plan in motion, Max. A plan to make Delia happy. He perks up. Just tell me what you need done. I'm sorry, Maximilian, and Beatrix. She's distraught by one of Beatrix's schemes. She's somehow put into Delia's head that Delia isn't good enough to be queen, but though I've tried to tell her that she is, I think she needs to hear it from someone else. Once she's calmed down a bit, and my last meeting is done around 10, you will bring her to the North Garden fountain to meet me. I have a plan from there, so just go along with it. He nods determinedly and walks off hurriedly, probably excited to see her. I was far from the only one vying for Delia's hand, but the only one she had eyes for. Are you sure about this? Louise looks at me doubtfully, clearly noticing Maximilian's reaction. She wasn't with us at the academy, so she doesn't know exactly how many fancied Delia, but she can recognize a man in love when she sees one. Then, should things stay the way they are? She frowns. It will be fine. We are already villains to her. It can't go down from there. I sigh. Dealing with Delia's games is far easier than dealing with Beatrix, though. I get up, go to my last meeting of the day. This is the best answer I can come up with for doing this properly. Part of me hopes it won't work, but I can't hesitate. For me, for Delia, and for Beatrix. 8. Eloping Princess. 4 hours later. The North Garden is the morning garden. It's quite small, but beautiful nonetheless, and hydrangea of all shapes and colors adorn its paths. In the middle is a small fountain, and this is where everything is going to come down for me and Delia. The reason I chose the North Garden is because Beatrix Mansion specifically can't see it. I can't have her ruin the rest of the plan. It doesn't take long before Maximilian appears, holding Delia's hand tightly. Delia's eyes are all swollen, but she looks cutely determined. But I've already made up my mind. It's time to put an end to this and clear up this blinded love properly. To take control of my own life again. It's time to put on my best Beatrix performance. Are you still crying? Delia's determination deflates at my cold mocking words. I go away. Of course it does. She wasn't expecting such words of abuse from me. And neither was Maximilian, that immediately looks like he's about to fly off the handle. I can't believe that you're still trying to make this work, after how the last 3 weeks have gone, Delia. I thought you'd realize now that we aren't meant for each other. Maximilian looks utterly confused, and Delia looks like she thinks someone replaced me, and she's trying to figure out where the real one has gone. I agree. This isn't like me. To be honest, it's pathetic. I could just let her down normally, but I thought about it. Between telling Delia everything and telling her that she just isn't suited to be queen, that in the end I won't be able to love her, and that I had agreed to Beatrix's scheme, this is better. As pathetic as it makes me, I want this to end happily, so that whenever I see her in court in the future, my heart will feel no regret. Delia's point of view. What is going on? This isn't the Clovis I know. You could have any man you want, but your eyes landed on me, who is already happily engaged. That's not what happened. Is it? Bae? If you had just looked a bit to the side, you would have seen that idiot there, come running to your side with every fiber of his being, willing to give up everything to make you happy. Eh? Kai? I look up to Maximilian, who looks at Clovis with shock. He doesn't know what's going on. I look to Clovis. The air around him is different. He feels more like Beatrix now, scary. But what is he saying? Is he saying he never loved me? I can't help but to think back on the sweet words we had shared together, the joy when we finally won over Beatrix. So I decided to teach you what being the queen really means, the pain and burdens. I freeze. Why? Why? Maximilian stands up for me, asking what I forgot to in the confusion. Because you were hurting my fiancé, who had been protecting your family from your actions. Eh? Beatrix had? I look to Maximilian, who frowns. That's a lie, right? I look to Clovis. Right? I've had an investigation run, professionally, that confirms it. The witnesses to your bullying is being re-interviewed as well. I feel the strength in my legs disappear. So the fighting with Beatrix was just a plot to punish me? That's taking it too far. I look up at Maximilian, that snaps at him. Then, why didn't you confess to her yourself, Maximilian? Maximilian blushes deep red under the moonlight. He looks down to me, with guilt in my eyes. I didn't have the courage, since it seemed you only adored His Highness and you were so afraid of my sister. Shait. Is he confessing? I feel heat rise to my cheeks. But I'm engaged. Our engagement was a performance. Beatrix is my official fiancé, always has been and still is. The staff was told to treat you as my fiancé ahead of time for the sake of this performance. Is that why none of them really treated me like his fiancé? I looked down at the ring he gave me. Then, that means I'm done being punished now, right? Yes. I see. All the pain and frustration, it was punishment. How cruel. I take off the ring and drop it on the ground. It never meant anything. But, if you knew I liked Delia, then why didn't you just convince me to tell her instead of this? Why make her go through all of this? Because she only saw me. He almost sounds sentimental under the cold tone. I really did, didn't I? When I found the two of them on the balcony yesterday, I should have known that his hate towards her must have just been a performance. Now go make that idiot happy, someone that truly wants it, and forget about me. I wipe the tears and look at Clovis. He's smiling, slightly. I know I should be angry, probably furious with him, but part of me is just relieved that it was just a play, that I'm free, no more waiting until the late hours for someone that just falls asleep and won't hold me as tight as I hope. I want someone that's just as dedicated to me as I am to them, someone that has the time for me. I will. I end up smiling and look at Maximilian, who is staring at Clovis with pain in his eyes, and then to me. Are you? Sure, Maximilian asks me, nervously. I squeeze his hand. It's the future king's order. Unless you don't want me. I smile to him, and he blushes red. I squeal as Maximilian lifts me up in his warm arms like a princess. How could I not be deeply and madly in love with you, Delia? Instead of a carriage taking us away, he brings me on his white horse, and we ride under the moonlight, where I breathe in the night air of freedom. Clovis' point of view. Part of me can't believe that Delia actually believed half the amount of lies I just sputtered out. At least Maximilian played along decently. I sigh, as Louise comes out from the bushes, staring at me with as much disbelief on her face, as I feel right now. Your acting pales compared to Beatrix, to the point I am not sure Miss Delia has ever been in a theater before. Shush. You look like you're about to cry. I sigh. It probably does. Saying goodbye hurts, and so does waking up to the reality that the person you thought loved you maybe didn't, or loved you in such a twisted way that they didn't truly care. At least it should. But I can see that clearly I'm the only one of Delia and I that is affected. This is goodbye. She will never come back again and never regret leaving. It's a clean cut. I don't need her to remember me either. I don't have time crying or grieving over hopes that weren't meant to be. The night hunt is up next. I glance to Louise, who stares at me with confusion all over her face, making me unable to hold back a little smile. Time to face the real villain that set this month up for me. She looks at me, then to the mansion in the south, and then back to me. Hunt? Lady Beatrix? I fear you'll step into a few hundred traps, even if you make it past the guards and servants. Louise hasn't been over there. I give her a secretive smile. After all, it's a secret only between Beatrix and I. My fiancée certainly does have a way to get what she wants, doesn't she? Louise smiles awkwardly, and then sighs, shrugs, and crosses her arms. I think the only thing she wants is you, though. But are you okay with that? Gonna enslave yourself to the spider witch? I end up sputtering a laugh. What kind of name is that? I walk over to the ring that Delia dropped on the ground and pick it up, staring at it with lingering pain. As much as I might want and have tried, I can't shove the blame of what happened on Beatrix. Short periods, where things are like this, do happen normally without interference, though usually the king and queen wouldn't be in the same castle at that point. Would Delia have changed for me? Maybe. With enough time. But that's not the Delia I fell in love with. I fell in love with that slightly clumsy her, the kind and sweet her. The free her. Could we have changed the country to make a place for Delia by my side? Maybe. But how long should we endure before reaching that? Would our hearts have lasted that long, or would we have turned to shadows of ourselves as we tore each other down? I know that I, for sure, turned to a shadow of myself. If you look at it like that, all Beatrix did was give us a trial period. I let out a soft sigh. In the end, Delia wanted to be free. I don't know if she wanted to be free that much, knew me so little, or loved me so little. But she didn't hesitate to believe my words and leave, from a silly excuse like that. Everything I thought we had gone through together could be washed away so easily. It makes it hard not to think that I must have been replaceable from the beginning, though that probably isn't true. But Beatrix never truly let me go. She probably never will. To be honest, I don't think I can pull out the claws that the Spider Queen has dug into my skin, Louise. I look to Louise, who gives a small smile. Need help. I shake my head softly. I realized, with Delia I always had to come up with a solution. Whether I was the one in the wrong or not, I had to protect her, even from myself. But Beatrix, even after I was planning to get her exiled, she set up this grand scheme to get me to see the truth. She does not cut off the discussion, cry when things don't turn out the way she wants, or run away. She is always there to discuss what had been done wrong, and where she had taken it too far. That's a lot of dedication to me. Dedication that should be returned in equal amount. I stand up and put Delia's engagement ring in Louise's hand. Have it melted down. I have to go on a spider hunt. See properly what's underneath the chitin armor she's used as a mask. Don't get bitten, she warns me in return. Don't think I can avoid it. I am about to leave, as I remember one last thing I need to do properly, before I go and be an idiot. Beatrix will be back in her spot as the crown princess in the morning among the servants, and have a room prepared for her. And a new one for me. I wish to never see the inside of that room again. 9. Hunt the Villainess. Beatrix's point of view. I gaze out at the moonlight, softly humming one of the many odd songs that just appear in my head once in a while. Songs that belong to that woman whose memories I got. If I hadn't received her memories, then where would I be now? Somewhere in the mountains in a monastery somewhere, crying my heart out that I didn't deserve what was coming for me. Would I deserve it? That said, though I got her memories, I am still me in the end. I'm not quite a good heroine. Then again, my job is only to get in their way anyway, which I believe I have done quite splendidly. Does someone like that deserve a happy ending? Probably not. While I don't know the details, knowing that Clovis has now twice been heartbroken enough to show up at my door proves that my gamble worked. Delia, like a young fool, fell head first into all the obstacles I made for her. It's something I excuse with the fact that she's been flirting with my betrothed. In the end, just because Delia gets a bad end, that doesn't mean mine will be any better. Even if I win, what kind of victory will it be? He will probably be heartbroken for years. Even if he isn't, will he actually show any interest in me, or will he just accept that Delia doesn't belong in the royal court? That's how that kind of works when the villainess does win, isn't it? I jolt as I hear the front door open. Clovis usually knocks. I think back on Clovis' warning, and those guards of his I sent away. In the first place, no one really knows I'm here other than Clovis. I glance to the window. It couldn't be that Clovis ended up being right? To be honest, it's more likely that it's Delia having found out I'm here, and now trying to sneak in nervously thinking I'm a sort of vampire. I grab the lantern before heading out of the room to the hallway. The front door closes again, but there's no call for me, not even a nervous hello. Could it be that Clovis is being annoying? He did seem quite angry as he left last night. Did I push him too far? I get to the stairs in the entry hall, looking down over the shining marble floor, shining in the moonlight, but I don't see anyone here. Did they just peek in, perhaps? I narrow my eyes, looking over the place again, as a shadow suddenly moves from behind one of the statues, grabs my lantern, and lifts me over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes, getting a surprised yelp out of me, as my world is spun around. Seriously. I'm certain I told you to bring some guards, Beatrix. Ah. Clovis? Clovis? I snap out his name, as he carries me and the lantern down the hall. Think of it as punishment. I sigh and use my hands to push off against his back, so I'm at least not turned downwards. For what part exactly? He has an arm wrapped tightly around my thighs, so it's not like I'm going to get free without falling down if I struggle. Specifically not getting any guards. I sigh, just for that you had to get a scare out of me. I purse my lips a bit. Well, I do suppose he is entitled to that much. Maybe. His voice isn't particularly warm or cold, though. What is he doing here? He left yesterday without a word, so I thought he went back to Delia, with determination to make their relationship work. At least he's making it fairly clear he's heading to my room. When we finally get there, he kneels down and puts me on the edge of the bed, surprisingly gentle compared to the rather rude pickup. I correct my clothes and brush my now unorderly hair over my shoulder as I look down at him kneeling in front of me. The power dynamic shifts as he looks up at me with that blonde hair and green eyes filled with determination and hints of worry. ... What are you doing? I search his eyes, but he's not being grouchy, angry, or about to bust into tears. What about Delia? She eloped. Oh my... Eloped? With who? When? With your brother just before I went over here. What? Why? I played the bad guy, and once Maximilian confessed to her, that was about it. She didn't look back once. I stare dumbstruck at him. What happened to the main leads conquering all in the name of love? Why that idiot brother of mine? Are you kidding? I stare at him in disbelief. He doesn't look like he's kidding. But then, are you all right with that? I'm very honestly shocked with the outcome. Does this mean that everything turned out the way I planned? Or just that he will now look at her longingly every time my brother visits? Clovis gives me a weakened smile. I'm a fool. I'm not an idiot, Beatrix. He takes my hand in his, and just holds it, and looks at it for a moment. My heart broke when I saw her with Cyril. I convinced myself to forgive her, afraid of losing what was probably my first love. I convinced myself that enduring the worry and suspicions I might have against her would be better than to attempt to fix the messed up situation between us. He takes a deep breath. I'm an idiot, I'll admit that. I let it go on until both Delia and I could barely communicate anymore, and were just hurting each other, until both of us were turning into someone different. He looks bitter for a moment and then composes himself. Thank you for making me face what I didn't want, and for being there when my head was all messed up. He gives me a small smile, but somehow I feel a bit guilty, because I didn't only make him face it for his own good. I didn't have such pure intentions. I wanted both of them to be in pain. A bit. Probably reading my dissatisfaction my face makes him smile wider. I know you think of it as part of your little scheme, but for it to have been a proper scheme, you should have seduced me properly the first time my heart was broken. Not send me off with a sandwich or tell me about your so-called devious plan the second time. Seducing you wouldn't have worked anyway, I respond with a huff. It would. I cross my arms, taking my hand away from him, and then look down at him, being all serious, as he insists I could have seduced him. If it was that easy, then there wouldn't have been a problem in the first place. Maybe for the night, and then you'd feel all guilty and beg Delia for forgiveness, because now you both failed. Besides, I meant it when I said you looked unbearably sad. He's quiet for a moment and then gives a weak little smile, but his green eyes shine at me. You make as bad of a villain as I do. I do not. I am prime villainous material, you know. If you wanted that night, Beatrix, you could have made me give up the keys to the kingdom for a kiss and a soothing love. I don't think you should have, looking back at it, but you could. He holds a hand out for me to take again, which I take, and he gently squeezes my palm. Well, again, of course I didn't. A guy without his mind made up won't actually give you any of his heart. Part of the goal here was also to actually improve my relationship with him, to get him to trust me. That last 1.5 weeks was a hell of my own device. A hell that slowly twisted love to spite. To be honest, I'm relieved that Delia is gone, happily believing that she has done nothing wrong. The only sadness left in my heart is in how easily it all fell apart. Well, puppy love does tend to do that, when not in stories. Besides, the two of them didn't actually know each other that well or what they were getting into. This is especially why royalty don't marry for love. Because love has little say in if the person is suited to the stress and political pressure of nobility and royalty. Which brings us to this then. How do I earn your forgiveness? I never did think I'd hear this question from him, but unlike what Clovis thinks, I do think he has suffered enough. Seeing a person torn down to the part that they flinch at the sound of the voice of their lover, doing everything they can to get them not to be angry, is humbling. I don't need him to be punished further. I might be a villainess, but I don't step on those already on the ground. But, Clovis' point of view. Beatrix's lips curl into a foxy, playful smile at my question, and I swear this mischievousness in her eyes gleams. She looks like she's about to suggest something outrageous. She's either not taking me seriously, or she really doesn't care about the chaos I've made. Unexpectedly, she crosses her legs in front of me, raising one of her delicate feet to my shoulder, while looking down at me haughtily. Why don't you kiss the top of my foot and ask for that forgiveness? She's not taking me seriously, this bully. She's sitting there, only in her chemise, letting me anywhere near the hem of the dress and her bare skin. It's been less than a month since she bullied me for looking at her like she's a woman. But does she think of me as a man? Or perhaps that's the point. I shift enough to take her ankle in my hand and place a kiss on the top of her foot as requested. Please forgive me. Her eyes and lips gleam with satisfaction and hints of a blush colors her cheek. She's enjoying this too much. Then, I will forgive you. With that, I've really been forgiven then, I can play along with that. I kiss her ankle this time, while keeping eye contact with her to gauge her reaction. She looks bemused. Are you sure I confirm with her? She reaches down, cupping my cheek in her hand, and then slides that hand down under my jaw before, more sensually than I think she realizes, grabs my chin. I already told you so, did I not, Clovis? I shudder at the way she calls my name. Her honey eyes glazed with rather obvious excitement at having me underfoot. She really looks like a villain right now. If I call for help now, will a hero appear somewhere to save me? I try to suppress a smile. A soft finger brushes across my lips and Beatrix watches me so intensely as she does this. Are you really all right, ending up with me, Clovis? The look in her eyes soften. She asks that, after all of this, like she has actually ended up believing that she's a subpar choice. Now that I think of it, Beatrix and I have been good at tearing each other down as well. Perhaps it's time to change that. I gently take the hand, which finger is on my lip, and kiss the palm instead. If you think you can get away, by hiding the kind and playful self of yours away, you are mistaken. You've shown and taught me that I should press your boundaries more. I pause to kiss the inside of her wrist. And try to see the sides of you that you usually hide away.
She sneaks a fan from the side of the bed and unfolds it to cover her lips and cheeks from my gaze. But I can see her eyes glance to the side.
If I didn't know any better, I'd think she was a bit overwhelmed. It takes a moment before she looks back at me. When did you last kiss Delia on the lips? Temporarily thrown off, I end up thinking back. When did I last kiss her lips? I probably haven't kissed her lips since the incident with Cyril. What about before that? Probably. Not since we entered the summer palace. I stayed a bit dumbfounded at myself. Have I really not kissed her lips after that? The mood wasn't just really there. Beatrix grabs me by the jaw again and puts away her fan while looking at me intensely. If you kiss me that little, I'll believe you're angry with me. I feel my cheeks heat up, and if it wasn't because she had my jaw in her hand, it probably would have dropped in shock of the bluntness coming out of her. She lets go, and then gives a little huff. Then looks at her fingers like she's counting. I'll have you promise to give me a kiss at least. Every 2 weeks, unless it is not physically possible. You want me to promise to remember to kiss you, am I hearing this correctly? She looks down to me, her cheeks a bit red, as I accidentally make her repeat herself. You don't have to, if you won't want, and it can be a kiss on the cheek too. I lean my head to the side. That's not the issue here. Have you really forgiven me? Starting when? She looks like she's thinking for a while but keeps casting glances at me, like she's hesitating to say what exactly she wants of me, but every gaze of hers is making me blush a bit too. Beatrix, are you seducing me right now? She straightens up, trying to look down at me haughtily, but then she deflates a bit as I don't react immediately, and smiles a bit nervously. Doesn't work? I thought I was doing quite well for a beginner. This just isn't fair anymore. I stand up and in a swift move grab her arm, using it to pull her up in my arms with a little twirl, so her back ends up against my chest. I pull her into a tight hug, with my lips by the tips of her ears. No, you're doing too well? Putting me in a hard spot. But, since you're seducing me and being so very forgiving, I might as well take a little bite. A bit of what? She twists a bit in my arms as I nibble her ear, just to get a reaction out of her, nervously pushing the borders, and the squeak of surprise that comes out of her nearly has me in stitches, with how cute it is. Clovis. She doesn't usually use my name. I start kissing down her neck instead, and the tone of her voice softens. Wait, why? Why? After admitting you tried to seduce me, I whisper against her ears, and they're deep red. I put my head against the back of her neck. Let's stop here. If I don't, this will turn to something else than just playing back. I let her go, and she turns to look at me, somewhat pouty-lipped, and beet red, as she holds over where I nibbled on her ear. I didn't peg you for the type of a bully, Your Highness. She's pouty, so she's using my title again. She tries to regain her composure. But despite those words, I still see her cheeks flush redder when her eyes move to me again. I think you're bringing the worst of that out in me. Beatrix is the only thing I can respond to that. I have no intention of apologizing with the way she's stealing glances at me right now. It's making my head spin. I suppose I'll have to ask for forgiveness. Often. I step closer and bring my face closer to hers. I'll give you all the kisses you wish for, Bea. She turns redder again, but also more stubborn, as her lips curl into a playfully cruel smile, seeming happy as I refer to both her wish on how to ask for forgiveness and the request for kisses. Then, get on your knees again. I laugh softly. I'll make a mental note of this. Era, I wasn't joking. Beatrix grabs me by the shirt and pushes me down on the bed behind her, so I'm sitting and she stands leaning above me. She puts her arms on my shoulders and looks into my eyes, the blonde waves of her hair cascading down over us, her lips so close to mine that I can feel her breath against my lips. Who was a beginner again? Kiss me, she whispers softly. ... Are you sure? I hesitate. Kiss me, Clovis, she orders this time, making me gulp nervously as I lean up properly and press my lips against hers. The warmth of her lips, making me aware that my heart is hammering in my chest, and then my foolish heart leaps as she kisses me back and cups my cheeks with her hands in a breathless kiss that sends my head spinning. When she finally pulls back, she playfully wraps my lower lip in hers, tugging at it sensually. I'm bitten. Figuratively. Beatrix's point of view. I stare down at Clovis' half-naked chiseled body sprawled over my bed, and I feel my cheeks heat with shame. He's the first prince, and the main target of the heroine. Of course he's going to be needlessly handsome. I thought I was relatively immune to it after growing up with him, with his bad attitude. But I suppose that it's different when he comes at you while having only you in his eyes, specifically targeting where he can get a reaction out of you. I didn't actually think he'd comply with kissing the top of my foot. I was just being a little asinine and was going to tell him no forgiveness was needed. So I got a little high on the feeling of success. And then he started teasing and trying to take back control, so I had to. I stopped myself. There's no excuse. He's sleeping quite heavily again, unguarded. Just how much did we end up kissing yesterday? I brush over my own lips thinking back on it, still feeling a bit like I'm in a dream. Thinking back on it makes me fear a nosebleed. I got a little too excited. He did eventually put a finger to my lips, put of breath, almost begging me to let him calm down a bit. I grinned to myself. I did. Of course. Boundaries are important, and Clovis has things to work through as well. I move off the bed and start getting ready for a day filled with meetings. I suppose that, as I am now back in his good graces, I will have to resume my usual duties. I do not mind them though. Bit by bit I return to the official self. The cinched-in waist, the long, big dress covering anything of interest from view. Of course, however, the deep front cut demanded by current fashion, I suppose, leave men plentifully distracted from what is hidden. I look in the mirror, comparing myself to Delia for a moment. I'd never be able to pull off her sweet, innocent look. But it's not like I need it anyway. Embrace your own charm and your own traits. You don't have to be an innocent heroine. I stand up and walk to the bed where Clovis is still sleeping. How should I wake him up this time? I lean over him, debating my options, when disappointingly he looks up at me, his lips curling into a smile. Leaning in for a good morning kiss already. Do I get one if I were to say yes? He laughs softly. I don't think my antiques have made him laugh like this before. Always only sigh. He actually does lean up and press our lips together, his lips still warm and soft. A couple months later. bystander gossiper reporter's point of view. The first ball after the crown prince returns from the summer palace, and the drama is at its height already. His Highness, who attended the graduation ball with Miss Delia, attends this time once more with Lady Beatrix, with Delia nowhere in sight. Rumors go that she has Delia buried in a ditch somewhere. And the opposition? Looking furiously bitter. This will be perfect for the ladies' gossip back home. The fights and bouts over the place at His Highness' side is always a hot topic, especially as the betrothed Lady Beatrix has no affection from His Highness. I sneak a small notebook from the dress pocket and sketch out the bitterness of the rivals. That said, His Highness seems less chipper than usual. No, more that he's grown up a bit and become a little more regal. I sketch that down as well. Pictures of the first prince sell well, and this new vibe suits him. A younger subordinate of the opposition is sent off to test the waters. She goes up to His Highness looking at him with big doe-like eyes. She does, without doubt, remind you of Delia. That sweet country girl vibe the guys can't keep their eyes off recently. And Beatrix? She looks perfectly miffed as she approaches our challenger, glancing to the opposition like she's saying she's tired of this. Will this turn into another scandal of Beatrix publicly humiliating another girl? His Highness is already separating himself from the situation, seeing what's coming, is what I thought, but he approaches Beatrix. Is he finally going to put a stop to the verbal executions? I almost drop both pen and notebook, as His Highness Clovis leans down and kisses Lady Beatrix's cheek, in public, and that glare of hers turns shy and almost innocent with surprise. I need to draw this. This won't just be gossip material, this would sell. I've never seen Lady Beatrix look surprised before. A complete loss of poker face. I wish the moment could last longer, so I could draw it in more detail, but the moments just after are precious as well. How His Highness leaves, with a little smile on his lips, and how Lady Beatrix unfolds her fan with her usual snap, but actually fans herself, while trying to hide her own smile, and then rather visibly gloats at the opposition, while blushing. The battle is decided by His Highness, causing an automatic win for Lady Beatrix. I hold in a laugh as I glance back to His Highness Clovis. He's watching her gloating with a small, knowing smile from afar. I think he finally figured out how to deal with Lady Beatrix. I close the notebook. High society will be boring now where you actually support her, Your Highness. But look how immensely happy and proud she is, just from a little kiss on the cheek. I guess the villainess of high society ended up somehow winning. I want to ask how, but I don't think that anyone that knows would dare to tell. The end.